Hello and welcome to another episode of the Golden Hour Podcast, brought to you by the Polar Pro Studio. I'm your host, Dave Mays, and today's guest is Chris Brockhurst. Chris is a filmmaker who lives in Canada, originally from the UK, and he does gear reviews, tutorials, and filmmaking tips and tricks. He's also a freelance wedding shooter and real estate shooter with his wife in Canada. So we talk all about how he runs his business, how he's created a successful business on YouTube, and some of the struggles that he's had along the way. We also talk about a lot of fun things like Formula One racing, video games, dogs, and other things. So make sure to buckle up, get it? Formula One racing, and enjoy this episode of the Golden Hour Podcast. This is the first time we've actually met, I guess you could say, right?
I believe so, yeah.
I think we talked on Clubhouse a bit, and then we've been on Twitter for forever, friends on Twitter. But
best place.
Yeah, tell me about yourself. How did you get started into this filmmaking YouTube space, and where did you come from? I hear an accent. Are you from somewhere special?
That is a heavy question. I grew up in the UK and I moved to Canada when I was 23. So I've been here 11 years now. And in terms of how did I get started in the filmmaking world, I went to university for film and photo, media creation. It was called Digital Screen Arts, the course, and it was a solid course, but I only did it for 2 years, and then it started to go very, very abstract and just not what I was into, so I dropped out. And then really, I didn't do anything until probably 2012. And the first job I got when I came to Canada, because none of my qualifications meant anything when I moved, I was working in a camera store or a computer store, and they sold cameras, and it got me back into cameras. I bought a Canon 60D, and the rest is kind of history from there camera. In terms of it was like my first DSLR that had you could put a nifty 50 on it, and you get your background separation, your bokeh, and it just opened up the doors. It was the first possible for me.
I believe it was the first Canon camera with a flip screen too, so a lot of people really loved that camera for that reason. And then obviously since then they've been putting them on everything, but at that time, I was fortunate enough to be working with a guy who had a 5D Mark II, and I personally owned a 7D. And then the 60D came out, and it had the same sensor as the 7D, but it had the flip screen. And I think the build quality wasn't as good. It obviously didn't have some of the photo features that the 7D had. But for video shooters, the 60D was cheaper, and it was honestly probably the better option. The T2i also, camera. Do you remember that one? The T2i?
I do,
That camera was really cheap and really popular for a long time, but
that was the first budget version, right?
Yeah, it was.
Pretty sure it was. Yeah.
Okay, so you got the 60D, you dropped out your college dropout like many of us. Very cool.
Yeah.
What about your YouTube journey?
So YouTube started probably about 3 years ago, I think. I consider my YouTube journey to start when I started posting consistently, because I've had a channel since 2006. I think when YouTube very first started, I was one of the very first to join, and I just made holiday films with the family and posted a few videos here and there. It'd be like one video a year, and it wasn't for people to view. It was more for me to have it on there and share it with the family, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, totally.
And then, and then I started... it's not that of an exciting story, really. It's the same way as everyone else. I started watching Casey vlog and started seeing Peter come up, and then you just start to realize, you know what? That looks like fun. I love playing with cameras. I love making videos for myself. Let's do it. So I started doing it, and the easiest thing for me to go straight into, like most people, is with reviews, because you already have gear. You talk about what you know. You talk about what you have, and just kind of led into where we're at now, and now trying to not move away from reviews, but do a newer version of the reviews, lesser of the spec reading and more of experience-based and more enjoyable content for me to make, opposed to just reading a spec sheet. And much like everyone else is doing, to be honest with you. Everyone's kind of going the same route, I think.
I know. I think hopefully the listeners of this podcast aren't tired of hearing it, but that's been one of the main topics of conversation with myself and with several other creators on the show is that after you do gear reviews for a while, even if it's just a year or two, it kind of can become a cycle of like, okay, this is the same thing as last year, except it's a little
It is.
better. What else am I going to add to this? And when it's brand new and fresh, every review you do is fresh because it's the first time you've
Yeah.
ever reviewed anything like it. And also cameras have gotten so good that there's less to complain about, so there's less
Mm-hmm.
like um drama, if you will.
Yep.
I think back 2 years ago when I started with Kinetica, almost every camera that Canon made had something wrong with it. And then,
Mm-hmm.
we still have the Panasonic. I tweeted this the other day. Like, if Panasonic fixes their autofocus, like, it's kind of game over at that point. Then you have Sony and Panasonic and Canon, they're all crushing it.
Yep.
That's the only thing left is like if Panasonic actually put good autofocus in their camera, then it'd be
It's
like,
true.
okay, now what? We're actually bored now because
Yeah.
everything
Well,
works.
it's kind of like how we're at with phones and iPhones. It's for a
Yeah,
while
that's
all
true.
these new features kept coming out. And it's like, oh, we've got a fingerprint sensor, now we've got a camera that does this, and now we do 4K video. But now, really, what else can you go in or can go in the
Yeah.
cameras other than 8K? And then it's just okay. Well, now we get 8K 60, 8K 1, and it's just a vicious cycle.
But nobody
we're at
cares
the
about
point where we
8K,
don't
though.
need
That's
that.
what's crazy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then you need a new computer to edit it, and now you need memory cards that cost $1,000. So it's a vicious
Yeah.
cycle.
I had somebody texted me who's not like in the filmmaker space, and he was like, "Hey, I'm thinking about buying the A7S III, but it's only 4K. Is
Mhm.
that okay? Like, is that future proof
Only
enough? Like,
4K.
should I?" I was like, "Dude, like, believe me, we've arrived at this point. The A7S III is quite almost literally a perfect camera. Um,
Yeah.
yes, of course, the resolution isn't as good, and you actually made a wonderful video about a hack with resolution with that camera, but." Um, anyways, I think it's crazy that people are saying like 4K isn't enough, and it's just marketing BS, really, because
It is. It
nobody's
is.
watching anything in 8K. I guess it's the same conversation, sort of, that we had back in the day when 1080 was still kind of the thing,
Mhm.
and then 4K started rolling out. It's like, yes, you get more resolution to play with in post, and I can understand that argument, I guess, but for the most part, like, just chill. 4K
That's
is
what I'd
great.
say. Really, the only benefit to it is being able to crop in and still have 4K, right?
Yeah.
Like the reason I shoot in 4K now is because for most client work I'm exporting it in 1080, so
Yeah.
which is kind of a level up.
I
From
mean,
there,
we're shooting
really,
this
but
we're shooting this interview in 1080 because I don't want to deal with a
exactly.
2 hour long podcast, and even
No,
4K is too
that's it.
much.
50 gigabyte
Um,
file, just not worth it.
yeah. So your channel, for people who aren't familiar with it, you really cover a wide range of topics in the gear filmmaking review space. You've done some great tutorials. Like I just said, you did a great
Thank you.
tutorial on how to get better resolution out of the A7S. I really love that video and shared it with a couple friends. Um,
Thank you.
you know, where's your current, like, what are some of your current goals right now with your channel? Are you making money on the channel
Ooh.
too? Like, are you still doing freelance stuff on the side? What's kind
Oh
of
yeah, yeah.
going on with
I had a
your
full-time
YouTube
job
journey?
up until I had a full-time job really up until January of this year, and then I quit. But yeah, a big portion of my income is YouTube based, but then I'm also a freelancer for a lot of real estate, small businesses, and then in the summer when weddings happen again, I do a lot of weddings, and that's something that I really enjoy doing. So that's a big portion of my income as well.
Oh, weddings.
Yes, I know you have a love-hate relationship, mostly a hate with weddings, but I genuinely enjoy them. I quite enjoy them. But I get to do them with my wife, so it's different for me.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't like editing weddings. That's the only thing that it
same.
was really
Same.
hard.
The shooting becomes just a pattern, and it is very
Yeah,
easy. And I don't find it a bad day. You're outside for most of the day.
it's
And,
fun. Yeah,
but you're right. The editing is a week of sat on a computer or 3 days of sat on a computer and
yeah,
hating
and
the music that you're editing to. And
yeah.
yeah,
I
but no, back to
I
my other
started
question.
right.
Your other question. Go on.
I was just gonna explain my case on why I hate it. It's just because there was a period in my life where we were shooting 2 or 3 a week, and
Right.
we were piling on so many edits. So we'd shoot on Friday and Saturday, and then me and my buddies, we had a company together, and like we would literally just sit in a room all day and edit weddings, and it just became so monotonous, and it's the same
Hmm.
storyline over and over. We're using the same music. It just kind of became a formula, and it lost that kind of intimate,
Pizzazz.
special thing that weddings are supposed to be. So
That's it.
I'm not against it at all. In fact, I think it's one of the best things you can do to get started, because you can get so much experience
100%.
and you become fast and more of a run and gun shooter for sure. So
Agreed. Very much agreed. Yeah. Yeah. When you have that backlog, it's horrible just to know, okay, well, I finished this one. I've got 4 more to do, and now I'm shooting 2 more this weekend. So,
yeah,
yeah, I feel you.
exactly.
I feel you, yeah. But it's a
But
great way
yeah,
to
what
start.
what were you about to say before I cut you off so rudely?
No, you're fine. My YouTube channel right now, I'm kind of all over the place. Like I post a variety of like reviews, experience-based stuff. I kind of like shooting like I call them like a docu-vlog as well. It's
Uh-huh.
like once a month I just shoot with one lens to shoot basically family stuff, things that are going on in my life, hanging out with the family, doing things around the house, going out and doing things, and then I narrate it. And that's one of my favorite kind of videos to shoot. They don't do as
I
well,
love
but
that.
those are ones I genuinely enjoy shooting. And I kind of hacked the system in that I title it and thumbnail it as like this is a lens video, and then it turns out to be a
Yeah.
video. But it works, so I enjoy doing
Yeah,
that.
that's a good hack to actually do
Hmm.
something you love, is if you can sort of package it with a title and thumbnail that is more clickable, but get them to watch something that's a little bit more entertaining. I think it's a really important thing, and anybody who's listening who wants to get started, you could use this as a strategy for creating stuff that's a little bit more interesting than just a straight review. Um, the problem is, and the trick is like, if you're reviewing something that's like an NDA product and you do it in that
Hmm.
format, and then you release it with everybody else's release, people kind of get pissed off because you get all these people who are new followers or people who've never heard of you watching your video, and they're like, I just want the information. So you
Yep,
kind of have to
yep.
balance it out, but it's totally possible. And obviously Potato Jet, McKinnon, they're all doing that, and do a great job at it. So
Yeah, just repackage it as something else. What about yourself though? You're trying to go towards more entertainment based. I listened to one a
yeah,
few weeks
so
ago. You said where you're kind of still playing ideas out, but like, how are you at with that? What's the stage?
yeah, so I currently, this is the first corner of my bedroom here. It's not a bedroom, it's like a bonus room that we have in this house. This corner is the Golden Hour podcast corner. And then on
Okay,
the opposite side of my camera here is a green screen wall. I just bought green screen paint. Did you know you could buy green
perfect.
screen paint? It's pretty cool. That way you don't
That's
have to have a
interesting.
green screen all the time. So I'm
Huh?
just gonna paint my wall. That way I never have to
That's
set it up.
easier.
It's just always there. Yeah. Um, so I'm gonna paint that wall, and then um, I'm gonna keep my Dave Mays channel, which exists. I've got like 5,000 subs there, and I haven't posted there in like a year or more. But
Okay.
I'm gonna try to get back into gear reviews now. I think I'll kind of stay in that world a little bit, and kind of talk the behind the scenes of this show, behind the scenes
Hmm.
of this other channel that I'm starting, and the majority of my time will be spent on experimenting with this new channel that's purely entertainment. It's like this superhero robot character that reacts to funny memes on the internet, and I'm just going to try to make it as entertaining as possible. It may eventually become a commentary channel or a reaction channel. I'm not sure. I need to do a couple of experiments and see what
Right.
format I prefer and which I like, but I love watching people like Drew Gooden and Daniel Garcia and or Gonzalez, sorry, Daniel Gonzalez. All these like reaction commentary channels, Mr. Beast, obviously,
Hmm.
and I started as a magician, years ago. So, um, anyways, I'm talking too much.
It's in your background to do some form of entertainment then.
Exactly. So I've
Yeah.
always had an entertainment edge with my gear reviews, and I've always kind of battled the back and forth with the audience of like being too entertaining or too silly instead of just getting to the point of the product. But I don't know, maybe I'm just getting into my head and being ridiculous about it, cuz obviously I could just keep going with doing gear stuff and do it on my own instead of Indie Mogul and Kinatika. So
I think the being silly is good though, because that's you, right? I'm a firm believer that people come to your channel, yes, for watching some of the videos that you put out on gear, but they also want to kind of see you.
Yeah.
So if you're silly
You're not
and you
wrong.
get people that like you because you're silly, then there you go.
I'm just a silly old boy.
Aren't we
Tell me
all?
about the podcast that you started with some of our mutual friends, and I'm gonna try to
Yeah.
get. We've already had Emilio on the podcast, and we've got you. We've only got one left, and then I
And
think
then we're
we were
going to have
talking
you.
about yeah. So it's like a
Yeah.
and then and basically all the guests that I have, you have on yours. So it's like this
It's
big
funny, isn't it? Yeah. We were
collaborative
joking that
podcast.
everyone's doing like a book tour of all the different podcasts. And I think
Yeah.
Jesse, for a while, he was literally like, he did ours, and then the next week he did yours for the second time, I
Uh-huh.
think. And then he did someone else's. And yeah, it's funny. The podcast kind of started from Clubhouse. We ran for, I want to
Yeah.
say 4 or 5 weeks, like a Clubhouse room. And they were, some weeks they do really good. And then we started to see, like, by week 4 or 5, it just went from average of like 50 people in there to 3 or 4. So we noticed that the trend of Clubhouse disappeared, and we all just really got on. We were all doing YouTube channels. We all had similar goals. We all had similar pains and things to complain about. So we said, let's start a podcast. And we didn't want to do it in like the traditional sense. And we all listened to, I'm sure everyone knows Smartless, the podcast there. And we just straight copied that idea and
Yes,
did
I
it
love that.
for our niche instead. And it
Okay.
honestly works. Like we're happy with how it's going. We had some great guests on. It's really entertaining for us. Like we're always talking in the back end. So if anything, it's kind of made the 3 of us friends, which is just a great thing in itself.
Yeah. What do you guys use?
It's fun.
Before we started this podcast, I'm using what's it called? Zencaster. What are you guys
Yeah.
using now? You had some issues with Zencaster. It's like a multi-podcast video audio app. I'm using it right
Right,
now
so-
for the first time. Hopefully it works, but
It seems to be working with us. So we used Zencaster to begin with, but the issue was there was always sync problems, or someone would get disconnected, or if someone's internet's not as good, then they'd drop off, and then when you try and match it all up in post, it was just a nightmare. I mean, really, editing 4 people's videos and audio in itself is a bit of a nightmare. But we just found it too much. So now we do everything through Zoom. We record locally. And then everyone attempts to send all the files to Emilio, and there's always issues. There's still sync issues, and we have slow internet. Like I live in a pretty rural area, so my internet takes a long time to upload the files. But it works in the end of the day. We're starting to realize now we need to really be a week ahead all the time. So if we are a couple of days late sending the files, or the guest is a bit late sending the files, it's not a big deal. But probably the same things that you deal with all the time as well, Dave.
yeah, that's the struggles of podcasts. And you would think that, in the filmmaking community, people would be on top of it, but you'd be surprised how many of my guests have fails on the audio or the video, or their internet is slow, or they forget to send me something. And so
You know what it
using
is?
Zencaster is like
We
my
all
hope
like
that it works.
making things, but we're terrible at the admin side of stuff. I find that's for me at least.
It's true.
Emails, sending files, staying on time with things, and I think that's what
I'm surprised you guys are doing video. If you just cut out video and made it an audio only podcast, it would be so much easier.
So much easier.
Yeah, when you're a YouTuber, it's just like, oh yeah, we should do video, but it's hard like running I've been doing the podcast channel now for about 3 months, and only now am I starting to see a little bit of traction. It's hard to get the views up on that, and I think it takes time for the algorithm to figure out what to do with it. And then you also have like the whole clips channel idea too. Is like, do I want to start another channel and ask people to subscribe to 2 channels? Like, this isn't the Joe Rogan show. Like, I don't have 5 million people listening, so like I don't think it's worth me having another channel, spending time on it. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I didn't really understand that people watch podcasts on YouTube anyway. I didn't know that was a thing until we really started ours. And I guess people leave it running in the background, they listen to the audio, then they might check it now and then. But that's just a way for people to consume a podcast. I didn't realize that was a thing. So yeah, when Emilio said we were going to have a video as well, that opened my eyes to it. But the clips aspect through Joe Rogan, I get why it's there. Because if I don't know, like Joe Rogan has some big guests sometimes, and there'll be something big that happens. Like all I can think of is like the Elon Musk one where he started
smoking a joint.
Yeah, he's getting super high, and so when I heard about that, I was like, okay, I want to search it. So you search it and it just brings up the clip straight away. So that's, I suppose, the reason that he has that. No one wants to skip through a 3.5 hour podcast to try and find that one part. So it's smart in that respect, but
there's little viral moments almost in every podcast. Like there could be, even in our conversation, there could be one or two little segments that are only 5 minutes long that if it's titled properly and thumbnailed properly and put out there, it could, get picked up and somebody might be interested in it. So, but I just like you, I'm not necessarily doing this for money. Polar Pro does, host this show, and they do pay me as an employee to be the host of this show. But other than that, like, this podcast does not make money. The goal of it isn't to make money. The goal of it is just to have conversations with creators and stuff like that. So
it makes sense.
So let's talk gear, because we're both gearheads and gear nerds. Are you a Sony shooter?
I am a Sony shooter, yeah.
What are you shooting on these days?
A7S3. I just got the FX3.
Okay.
I've been waiting for the FX6 for a while. That's like my dream camera, the FX6. And I've had a pre-order in for like 3 months, but it's impossible to get here in Canada. Literally impossible.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it still on order?
Yeah. I put in my pre-order in February, and I don't think it's coming now until around like end of July, something like that.
Holy cow.
Yeah. I kind of feel like there's going to be an FX6 too by then.
Seriously?
Yeah, really.
That's awful. Maybe there's some other... Have you looked at like random camera shops around town that might just have it in stock?
They're all pretty terrible here. It's not like the States where they're pretty bad here. There's one big one, which I won't name, and they're the one that I've pre-ordered from, but a lot of the other camera stores won't stock that kind of thing. It's a special order item, I guess. And even like for my local camera store is an hour and 20-minute drive for me. So there's nothing really local I can drive to. So yeah, but it'll come eventually.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the perfect camera, really, because it has that beautiful A7S sensor, but you've got all the video things you need, like ND and XLR and all that. So I think it'll serve you well. I've heard that the menu layout and stuff like that isn't as nice as the A7S,
it's
ironically.
Horrible. It's absolutely horrible, yeah. But when I had a loaner from Sony for a while, and I played around with it, you can get used to it. It's got so many custom buttons on it that you really don't need to go into the menus once it's set up. So
I'm using the C70 these days, and the menu on that also, like, it's pretty straightforward, but I wouldn't say it's great either. So for some reason,
I love the look of that camera. You like it, right?
I like it. Yeah, I was kind of like forced to get it in a way because I'm currently, the reason that I moved to Nashville is because I did get a full-time job now. So
Congrats.
I'm working with a client who, thanks. It's not as like flashy and sexy as Indie Mogul, but it pays the bills and it allows us to live in a better place for my family. So anyways, they're all Canon everything. The company I'm working for, the production company I'm working for now, they're Canon all the way through, and they hired me to be the main video shooter, and they're photographers and they shoot everything Canon. So they're like, get the best Canon video camera that you can get. And it was actually a toss up between the R5 and the C70 for me, but I'm doing so many long takes and I really wanted to have ND and all that kind of stuff that I was like, the C70 makes way more sense for me. So I got the booster on it. I've got the, I'm using the 16-35 2.8 version 3 on it. And then I just picked up, Polar Pro sent me the new mist filter for the matte box. So I got the whole thing. And then I just got my Easy Rig this week. So I've got the Mini Max, the Easy Rig Mini Max. So just that setup, the Rode Wireless Go 2s. Do you have those? Have you played with those?
I do. I just used it for the first time this week.
Dude.
What a fantastic piece of equipment.
It really is.
So good. Yeah.
Did you do a review on it or just kind of playing around with it or what?
Just playing around with it. I actually shot 2 things with it this week. It's just the convenience. So I did 2 different real estate things, and one of them I needed to have my voice in it as well as him. So we had one receiver on each. And then the other one, it was just a narrated walkthrough of a home, and it just flawless, completely flawless.
It's one of the most important pieces of tech, in my opinion. I said this on the Dici podcast about how it's like maybe one of the best products in the last couple of years. It's so simple. It's stuff like that that can just change the industry as a whole, because the first version did change the industry as a whole because so many copycats came out after it. But this one is such a great refinement of it, with the more improved range, the dual aspect of it that you can have two of them, and the recording on it. It's just so amazing. I actually bought two of them now. I have two so that when I do a full work day, I'd never have to worry about the battery dying. I'll just switch to the second unit. Right. Because that's the only thing that kind of sucks is there's no, it's not, you can't change the battery out. So, and I'm doing like long 8 to 10 hour shoot days with the client I'm working for. So it might die halfway through the day. So I wanted to have a backup pair just in case. But I
have thought about that, and I kind of thought what I'll do is have a portable USB charger, because I'll probably only be using one receiver. So that's, I did think about that. Like, what do you get out of the battery life on it if you're using it nonstop?
They rated, I think, around 8 hours or so. So I think 8 hours is pretty good. And you can also change in the settings. You can change there's like a LCD display on the receiver, and you can make the brightness like dim after like 2 or 3 seconds to save even more battery. So I have it set to that so that it's not burning the battery as fast. But I just, when you're doing professional shoots, you got to have a fail safe or something. So I definitely,
that's always why I strayed away from wireless before, especially for weddings. Like I always just use the, what was it? The Tascam, the DR10L. Yep. Yeah. I've used that for years, and it's flawless.
That's what's great about this new set, though, is now you have wireless and a recorder built in, so you can record it as a backup. But it's so great when you have it in camera. You don't have to sync anything; it's just there, So, one of the most kind of a boring product, but a product that I think everybody needs. Like, it's so small, you can throw it in your bag. It's kind of the perfect. It's great. I love it.
Even the dead cat on the top for the mic there, they screw in now, right? And before they just clipped off. They're a bit of a pain.
That's true. Yeah,
they really refined it.
I've never used that. I find the audio quality to be pretty terrible on the mics built in. It's a nice fail-safe if you have to, but I still use a lapel mic. Yeah,
same. Yeah.
But okay, so you're a Sony shooter. You got the A7S and the FX3. Why did you choose the FX3? It's basically another A7S III. What was your reasoning to get that camera?
It is and it isn't. There's quite a few little things in it. Yeah.
What do you like about it?
So I'm shooting on it right now. Tally lights is a big thing. Big thing for me, tally lights. Like, there's tally lights all over it. Has the record button right on the front. So for shooting a lot of stuff like this, if the people are watching on YouTube channel, you can just literally push, custom button 6, and that's a record button on the front. Smaller, so I do a lot of gimbal work. Unfortunately, I hate gimbals, but I do a lot of gimbal work. And it's like, because the EVF's just been chopped off the top, so the center of gravity is a little bit lower, so it's much easier to balance. So you can put a heavier lens on it. What else is there? A bunch of little things, really. Like, I haven't really played around with the XLR.
You don't really need a cage for it anymore, in a way. It's got so many threads on it.
There is, but the threads are kind of silly in that the places where there's like one on the side, really you need 2 threads so it doesn't move around if it loosens off. But the idea is there, and I'm sure Small are going to come out with something that can make them a little bit better. But overall, I think it's a better video camera than the A7S III is.
So if you could go back in time and not order if they both came out, here's the thing that's annoying. They should have both came out at the same time.
They should have, yeah.
Obviously they didn't. If rewind to when you ordered your A7S III, if this existed, would you have bought this instead? Or do you like having the EVF for photography?
So now I'm just spoiling the end of the video that comes out next week.
Okay. Well, this podcast will go live next week, so this is a promotion for that video.
Wait, the podcast comes out on Tuesdays, right? My video will be out on Tuesday, so there we go.
There you go. Perfect. They go hand in hand.
I summed up into 3 scenarios. I said if you have an A7S III and you need if you need a camera for both photo and video, get an A7S III. If you need a camera for just video, get an FX3. If you already have an A7S III and you need a B camera, get an FX3. That's how I can sum up into
I like that.
3 different
Because
sentences.
if you don't if you don't own the XLR module already and you're thinking about buying it and you need a B camera, then yes, get the FX3, because the XLR module is actually cheaper than buying the A7S III with the XLR module. So
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Armando Fiera, like, we're trying to get him on the show next, hopefully.
He's raving about it recently.
He's raving about that thing, man. Like, hardcore. So
I think just because it's a lot smaller as well, and the design of it, it's literally the same finish and color as the FX6. So they really are trying to just repackage the A7S III. But you're right, it should have come out at the same time. People should have had the option of buying both because they do the same things.
Yeah, but it's okay. This happens all the time, and all sorts of. I mean, Apple just announced a purple iPhone 12. 6 months after the original release, so it happens.
It does happen all the time. And by the time the new FX6 or the FX6 comes, there'll be a new camera, and like it's a vicious cycle. There's always something new.
I don't know. Cinema cameras do seem to last a little longer.
And they hold their value too.
They hold their value. Yeah. That's the thing. Canon especially holds its value really well. Like even the C300 Mark II, that camera is already like probably 7 years old now. Like, there's still like $3,000, to buy it, 3 or 4 grand. So obviously it's not 15 grand when you, so I guess it does lose quite a bit, but still, I mean, it's not like
USR
worthless.
I had that last year, and I loved that camera. I got it on like a crazy sale at Christmas time, and I loved it, and I ended up selling it because I just didn't need it with the A7S III at the same time. But what I sold it for, it's now like $400 or $500 more. It's like that thing's gone up in price used.
Really?
The longer it gets. Yeah, strange.
Interesting.
At least here in Canada, anyway.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, that's interesting. The R is pretty good. The mic jack was in the wrong spot. That always annoyed me.
Yeah.
That it was in the way of the flip screen. And obviously the whole 1080 4K issue was super annoying, but
the ridiculous crop.
Yeah.
It was one of those cameras that got love after it came out, a long time after it came out.
Yeah, true. The 1080 on it's not bad. It really isn't, but I mean, it's essentially the same as a 5D4, which came out forever ago. So
right.
Mr. Beast shoots 100% on the R. I've noticed that.
Does
everybody, all of his video guys are shooting on the R, the original, in 1080. And I've heard an interview with him talking about the gear, and he's like, we could afford to shoot on 4K cameras, but we choose to shoot 1080 like on older equipment so that it looks kind of crappy on purpose, to have a bit of a like relatable YouTuber vibe to it. And I think that's an interesting take. Obviously, for our niche, the quality of it matters a little bit more. But it is kind of funny that like PewDiePie has always gotten ripped for having crappy video quality. And after hearing Mr. Beast say that, I think it's probably completely intentional,
Yeah.
So.
And he knows what he's doing. So whatever he does anyway is going to do well. So
100%.
He can do whatever he wants and it'll do well.
So you mentioned that you're married. Does your wife also shoot with you? Is she a photographer or a video person, or?
In honesty, no, she's not. But for weddings, she comes with me. So when we started doing weddings 4 or 5 years ago, we wanted to have a business together doing something, and it made sense because she's great with like the admin side of things, the emails, the phone calls, and we just find having having a female for the bride. Yeah, I think they're just great at that stuff, or we're not. I think having a female for the brides to connect with makes it a lot easier and much more accessible for people to talk to and to book. So 100%. When she comes on the wedding day, she will shoot. Like, I've taught her how to use the camera. She knows what looks good now. She knows how to do all the right settings. So she can do everything. She just doesn't enjoy shooting it. She's much more of a director on the day, I should say. And she does really, really well with that. And I'm kind of the candid out the way shooter. But yeah, we love weddings together because we just kind of treat it like a date. we just get to go hang out for a day. It's the most time we get to spend together.
Free
We've
beer.
got 2 kids, so yeah, exactly. Have a free beer, free meal, sit down. That's always in the contract, and yeah, that's why I like weddings. It's a date for me and my wife.
2 kids. What are your ages of the kids?
So we have Harper. She was 2 in the end of last year, and then Noah, it was 1 in February. So they're very close together. They're like 14 months apart.
Yeah,
So
that's
incredibly
the exact
close.
same for us. I've got a 1-year-old and a 1-year-old, and a 1.5, and a 3.5-year-old. So
Pretty
it's not
much
the
the
exact
same, yeah.
but
So you've got a madhouse too.
yeah, 2 boys for us.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a very, very busy life right now. That's the easiest way to put it.
Yeah,
I'm sure you feel
totally.
the same.
When COVID hit, the date night idea kind of went away completely, and only just now are we starting to actually have some time to go out. And now that we live here near my parents only live 15 minutes from our house here.
Right.
They're coming over about once a week, and that's
Helps.
been phenomenal to like. But I told Laura today, actually, I was like, just wait, one day they'll be old enough to drop them off at the grandparents' house, and we could actually go on vacation for like a
I
week or
know.
like a weekend somewhere. Like, I can't. When we were like single, not single, but like when we were newlyweds for those 3 years with no kids, we took that for granted. We could have just left every weekend and done something if we wanted to, and we didn't.
It's so crazy. We literally say the same thing all the time. Like, we had no idea. We look back now and like, what did we do with our time? Like,
Yeah.
really, what did we do all the time? And now we
Hang
look
out
at
with
friends that
friends.
don't have. Well, yeah. And now we look at friends that don't have kids, and they're like, what do you like? You just don't do anything. So
Well, yeah, I have to like be careful because my judgment filter will like hit if somebody with no kids and maybe a dude who has like a girlfriend maybe, but like they're not married, and they're like, I just got no time. I'm like, dude, shut up, bro.
you have no idea. Yeah,
You have no
no
idea,
time.
man.
We always joke with Emilio on the podcast because Tausif and I both have kids, and Emilio doesn't. And he's like, there's times when we're texting and it's like, all right, I'm going to bed. And Emilio's like, how are you going to bed? I'm 8 hours ahead of you and I'm still up. And I'm like, well, I got to get up at 5:30 tomorrow to deal with the kids. You're living the bachelor life.
Also, there's just like a physical exhaustion with being a parent that like once you're done working for, I don't know how your workflow is, but for me, I try to stop at 6 o'clock. And so
Same.
at 6 o'clock, give or take a couple minutes, I go downstairs and I'm like, now I'm not working. And then from 6 to 8, I just run them down and read books and play games and whatever. As soon as they go to bed, like that's supposed to be time for me and my wife to like connect, but we usually just watch TV or just lay in bed because we're just so tired.
It's the same. It's the same.
So exhausting.
I will say though that the time that you get with the kids there, like kind of when you stop working, is really good as like I find for me when I'm working, my mind is constantly thinking like, okay, well, I've got to do this week. This has got to be done by next week. There's that brand deal for that week. So I really do like being able to just focus on the kids, and it just disconnects you from this whole world
100%.
that we kind of deal with.
It puts things into
weekly.
perspective too, because that's like if I lost my job tomorrow and I had to, do something else, like it doesn't even matter. It's just those little moments with the kids are so special. I don't want to take that for granted. Because like I'm
So true.
seeing myself like, I could work a little more. Like maybe I could squeeze an extra hour in here or there on my personal projects or whatever. But I'm like, I can do that in 5 years when they're in school. Like
That's it.
I don't want to lose these cute little toddler moments that we're having now. So
Before they start getting their own opinions and talking back to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We've got one sweet one and then we've got one crazy one. So Ryan is like just this really sweet, thoughtful, creative, he does like 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzles now. It's
Good for
insane.
him.
We do it
Wow.
together, but he'll like find the pieces and put them together. Like the 12-piece toddler versions are like, he's not interested in that. He wants to do like the 100, 300 and like 1,000-piece jigsaws. So he's really into puzzles. He's into drawing. And then Caleb just like breaks everything that Ryan builds and runs around the house and screams nonstop. He's like very active. So we've got
Hmm.
kind of one of each.
That's the
So
same for us. Yeah.
yeah.
It gives
Why
you
is it
it
like
gives
it's
you a
like a
good
practical
balance.
joke? It's a practical
Yeah.
joke on parents. There's always one of each. Because the first one is
One.
like, oh, this is easy.
Yeah, it's so
Second one.
true.
So
So
I
you
don't
had the
know.
easy one first and then the difficult one after.
I've heard it the other way around too. I mean, there's really
Okay.
no like formula, but for us, the
Mm-hmm.
easy one was first, and then,
Same.
but we thought it was hard, because it was the first. But
Yeah.
once we got the second, we were like, oh no, 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 we actually had it easy with the
It was
first
easy.
one.
Yeah.
So, what are some mistakes that you've made along the way as a freelancer, as a creative, and running a business, but also
Mm-hmm.
balancing being an artist? What are some of the mistakes and some of the things you've learned along the way that you could share? There's lots of people like you that listen to this show.
Hmm. Mistakes. If I can talk about YouTube, I would
Sure.
say don't say yes to everything.
Mm.
Kind of stick with your guts. When you start getting, I say, attention maybe from brands, you're going to get offered a lot of things. You just think, oh, it's free, I'll take it, and then you get it and you realize, why did I say yes to this? And then you realize you have to make a video about it. So kind of
Don't be
only
afraid
say
to
yes
send
to,
it back, though. I
yeah,
don't know about you, but I've also I've said yes, received a product, I see it, it sucks, and
yep,
and then it's okay to be blunt and be like, I'm not
absolutely,
interested in reviewing this. Can I send it back to you? Here's
yeah.
a secret tip. They usually say, no, you can
I
keep
don't
it.
know. Yeah, it's true. It's true.
No, anyways, that's a
Yeah.
great tip and something that's overlooked. I think a lot of people, when they're first starting out, just say yes to everything. So absolutely.
Because the other thing that will happen is as well is you'll end up just becoming you probably hear all the time that people get kind of cornered into their niche. If you just end up saying yes to all these products, you have to review so many products, and now you become a product review channel, and maybe you don't want to, and then it's harder to break that niche. So just try and think of the reasons that you started the channel, and then always circle back to that and try and stay down that route. And I say that because I went down the way of saying yes to everything and started taking all the products and starting doing reviews and getting niched in, and now you got to circle back out of it. But that's what I'd say in terms of YouTube. And then with freelance and commercial stuff, don't be scared to send product edits away for editing. The editing is what takes the longest time.
That's true.
Like,
Yeah.
if you need to send away edits for weddings, just send them away. As long as you send them versions of what you've already done, chances are they're going to be able to copy it. Sometimes they even do it better than what you do it. And
Yeah.
just put a cost on your time. And that's
So
something
you mean
we don't do all the time, but
you're hiring
yeah,
it
it
out? You mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And especially when you have kids and you want to cherish that time, like
Mm-hmm.
for the few $100s it costs to edit it, it's just worth it.
Absolutely. Yeah. You might make a little less. I think that's the thing that people feels like, my time, it'll just take me no time to do it. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm saving $500 or whatever, but it may end up not taking a little bit of time, and also the exhaustion factor of being in an edit for 3 days straight, it
Yeah,
can kind of burn you out creatively. So maybe if you hired it
hugely.
out, you could get more work and then just keep hiring out edits. So
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I'm doing here with the Golden Hour podcast. Connor is now editing these. So once this interview's done with you and I'm done. I'm just going to send the files over.
Which is just the best because like you're a creative person as well. Like you're not like some people excel at creating the products or creating videos, but they're just not great at editing them. And for me, that's one of the big things that I find I'm not great at, and I don't enjoy as much as filming. So,
Do you edit
and
the
then something
YouTube
else.
videos though?
Sorry,
Do you edit your YouTube videos though?
I do.
Have you found
I have
somebody to
thought-
do that, or yeah?
No, because I've started changing up the way that I edit them now in terms of the style and the format. I'm trying to make them more engaging, I guess is the way to say it. So I know it's more
Sure.
of like the YouTube style. So I think long term I am going to get an editor. I want someone just to cut the A-roll in the same format, and then I can just do the finishing touches
Sure.
with the B-roll and whatever. But yeah, I'd say that can help you hugely.
Yeah. Totally.
Just
And then the
uh,
third point, I think I cut you off
Mhm.
again. Sorry.
And that's okay. So I was going to say I used to work in management, and one of the things that they like when I worked outside of kind of this, one of the things you learn quickly is you need to learn to delegate things. So it just you take from that and then you use that towards this. But what I was going to say is as well is don't think that if you want to do YouTube, you want to do freelance stuff, stick it out for the longest time that you can with your regular job, because you can really like, I'm not saying like a year, I did it for 3 years until I finally quit. So you can actually see, okay, this is consistently going up in terms of money. This is consistent work. Like, because if you quit, you can't go back.
That's a good point. And maybe the hiring out your edit tip is a great tip there, because if you have a full-time job and you're doing freelance on the side, whether it's YouTube or something else, you may have enough money. It's like there's two ways you could go about it. It's like, oh cool, I'm making more money, that means I'm going to spend more money. Or you could be smart about it and use that extra money as bonus and almost an investment in building yourself an out for when that moment happens. So let's say you do a bunch of weddings and commercial projects on the side while also having a full-time job. Well, all the money you're making on those extra freelance projects could go into editing. Maybe not even all of it. So you probably could still keep some of it. So if you just budget that in while you're doing this and you have 3 or 4 editors that you're constantly working with, you could still have your 9 to 5, while you're at the office or while you're working for a production company or whatever it is that you're doing. Someone else is building your business for you while you're there, benefiting from, in America, benefiting from, health insurance and a reliable paycheck. Someone else is building your freelance business so that you have an out. That's a very smart point to make there, for sure.
Yeah. And for me, I kind of did it that way as well, because it was terrifying to jump away from a full-time job. Like, I've never not had a full-time job in my life. So for me, it was the first time to do it. And I think that's why I did it that way. But now looking back, I think I did it, for me, the right way.
That's great. And it's good to hear that for me, because I've never had a full-time job until Indie Mogul. So hearing you say that makes sense now, but I had no concept of it because I've been self-employed since I was 14, and my dad is also self-employed. So my model for what like a father and a husband is like owning your own business and being creative and whatever. He's a musician, a producer.
Right.
And so, but now that I have kids and, my wife is able to stay home and she doesn't have to work, I provide enough money for both of us, and having this full-time job allows us to have great healthcare and all this and that. So, there's a lot of practical, boring adult decisions to make sometimes, but
there is, but that's life.
Lord willing, we live long, healthy lives. And if that's the case, these 2 or 3 years of building something while you have a full-time job, it's not going to matter in the long run when you're talking 30 years down the road,
So true. I think a lot of people just tend to focus on the short term, and you need to look at it as more of a long-term approach.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What are some who are some creators that you watch that you really are inspired by? And it may be filmmakers or not. Like, are there any YouTubers or directors that really inspire you in your work?
So, in all honesty, about 4 months ago, I really stopped watching a lot of YouTube. I found that I was just kind of comparing myself to everyone else. Watching videos is very demotivating. So I'll still occasionally watch. The only people I'll watch as soon as they post a video is like Potato Jet, because he's incredible. Actually, more of his vlog channel, because he's just incredibly entertaining as a guy. And then Josh Yo. Those are like the only guys that I'll watch consistently. And then I'll now kind of watch more things outside of our niche on YouTube, that just like entertainment stuff. I really enjoy watching people go on like backpacking and camping trips. There's a guy in Canada that does out in Edmonton I really enjoy, called Camping with Steve.
Nice.
Yeah, I try and focus on less. My channel is, when I log into YouTube, you still see like it's just littered with the videos there. I don't think I'll ever be able to break out of that algorithm of YouTube feeding me what it thinks I want. But I try not to watch it now. I just try and focus on things outside of our niche, if I'm honest. And then movies. We were actually having this conversation the other day. I haven't really been watching any movies or TV recently. I don't know why. I just find... Yeah. The last movie I watched at the theaters was Tenet. But that was last year when the theaters were open for a very small amount of time. And then the last TV show that I watched... Actually, I think we were going back and forth on Twitter. Drive to Survive, the F1 one. That was the last thing I watched. Yeah.
You're into that, aren't you? Like,
I wasn't into F1, and now I am again. Like years and years ago I was. My dad was into it, my brother was into it, and I just fell out of being into it. And now it's fascinating to me again. It's all changed.
So for people who aren't familiar, there's a documentary on Netflix called Drive to Survive.
Drive to Survive,
Formula One and Netflix have like collaborated on this together. So the actual like sport, company F1, they've given Netflix full like 100% access to all the drivers. I assume they're making the coaches and the drivers sit in, do these interviews. It's really great. The editing, the storytelling, the drama, but there seems to be a bit of I didn't realize this. Like I saw it for the first time. I had no interest in F1. And then I started sharing like, oh, this show's great. And then I started getting lit up by all these like F1 fans about how stupid it is and how dumb the show is and how it's ruined F1. But like, I've never even...
they do in any
hardcore fans that are mad about it?
Any of the storylines are just, they kind of make their own storylines in the edit from what it sounds like, which is really any TV show or movie. They can edit it however they want, but it's just from a fan perspective someone who wasn't into it before. It's a really good way to get into it because the way that they show it is just so good. It's so entertaining. And I think there's 3 seasons, right? And you don't even need to watch them in order because each season is in its own as like a story that's different to the other seasons.
Although I did watch them in order. I went ahead and forced myself. Like,
you did?
I'm gonna start at the beginning. Yeah, I went in order, and it was good because you get to see different drivers. Their struggle with that company. For example, Daniel Ricciardo. Like within like 3 seasons, he's like moved to 3 completely different cars and different companies. I think is he with McLaren now? I don't know.
I think so. Yeah.
Which is bizarre. And like, I got to see his struggle with Red Bull and Max Verstappen and Ricardo's kind of battle with each other. And like now that he's even with McLaren, it's kind of like, oh, dude, you should have stayed with Red Bull. Like, what were you thinking?
Yeah, because they're doing so well.
Yeah, their cars are so good. Anyways, I'm a subscriber to the actual F1 subscription.
Same.
I'm watching it live now. I think there's a race on Sunday, so I'm excited about that. I follow all these drivers on Twitter now, and my feed is like mixed in with F1 stuff and camera stuff. How would any fan be mad at me for becoming a fan of F1 from the show? Like, I don't get it. It's
true.
I think it's just a bunch of macho guys that are like, oh, the drama's contrived and whatever. And sure, maybe it is, but that's also just, like you said, that's just TV. Like, all reality TV is fake,
Yeah, it's edited to create whatever storyline they want to create. But I don't know. I think just the way they must have brought so many fans to F1 now. Maybe they don't like that. Maybe it's harder to get tickets. Like, I have no idea. It's a good point. I don't know why someone would hate that. Maybe because it's mainstream now, and before it wasn't really that mainstream.
At least in America, like F1 has never been that big of a thing in the US, but it seems like it's NASCAR. A very international like sport.
It was
just
very
like soccer.
Yeah, very similar to soccer, football, Dave. Very similar to that when I was living in England. F1 was huge compared to what it is here, but I think that's because F1, I think, originated in the UK, I want to say, and a lot of the old race courses are there, and you can go and visit them, and there's a ton of races in Europe. There's a lot more like in Dubai now and
Well,
everywhere like that. But
yeah, Ferrari, McLaren, I think Alfa Romeo's now made a comeback. Like these are all European,
yeah.
companies. So,
hmm I remember years ago there was
Mercedes.
only ever like one Grand Prix in America, or two. Sorry, it was like the Canadian one, and then I can't
Yeah.
remember, Indianapolis. I think they were at.
hmm They just
Yeah.
opened a Miami one.
I
Like
saw that. I saw that. Yeah.
I have the F1 app and it alerts me of F1 news. So I'll be
I
like
think I turned off
editing
the
and then
notifications.
okay, I turned it on. I want them. I want the notifications.
Yeah.
So I'll be editing and it's like, oh, Miami is a new course. Do a 3D drive through. I'm like, oh heck yeah. And I looked at it and I'm like, oh sweet. I don't know what I'm looking at, but it's great. I
Yeah.
think this year is fascinating more so than ever because in the past F1 has had like unlimited budget basically. Like if you can afford it, you can do it. And so
Yeah.
Mercedes spent I think like $400 million or more on their car. And now there's a limit. Like you can't spend more than 140,000 or 150,000 or not thousand, 150 million, which is
Yeah.
still a ton of money.
Insane amount.
But that caps, the people at the top who were spending 400 million. Now they're being forced to like, lower their, just get more efficient with things. And then that
Right.
allows the teams with less money who can only afford 150. That's their high end anyways. Like now it puts them at the same level. And it's all about
That's it.
engineering and skill, which I
I'd
like that.
I'd
That's
say
great.
yeah, agreed. It's more to bring the teams, I think, closer together in terms of there's not like three teams that are just winning the Constructors' Championship all the time. It's, okay, now maybe this team could win that have never won before. So I find over the years, like I haven't been following it nearly as much as I used to, but now I obviously am again. But I remember years ago, they kept making changes to always try and make it more or bring everyone closer together. So it seems like just more of a severe way to do that.
Absolutely. Lewis Hamilton is incredible. Like he
He
is
is.
so good. I think it seems like Verstappen from Red Bull may be the next best. He's also very good, but watching Lewis Hamilton drive, like obviously his teammate has the same car as him and he still beats his teammate. So like he's a better driver. Like he just is.
It's just
so
pure skill. Yeah.
it's incredible to watch him, especially in the rain, and he's able to maneuver. And I don't know, it's pretty crazy.
People don't
Yeah.
understand what kind of athletes they are as well. Like you think, oh, it's just a race car driver. Like they just go home and eat whatever they want and they don't work out. But they are like
No,
some
that's
of
NASCAR.
the most. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Just drinking beer straight after.
Yeah.
They're some of the most like incredible athletes in the world. Like their cardio and like if you watch any of the behind the scenes of what they do, it's ridiculous. Like, so
Yeah, there's
interesting.
there's not a single fat F1 driver. I haven't seen any of them. So
No. And they're all pretty short as well. They're like
really, I didn't know
yeah,
that.
if you look at them, a lot of them are quite short. There is a few taller guys, but a lot of them are quite short.
Max Verstappen seems pretty tall to me.
He's tall, yeah. I think it's maybe like the weight. Like the weight probably helps because obviously the light of the car. So just an observation I made at least. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, you're right. The lighter you are, the lighter the car, the faster it goes. So yeah, that makes sense. You better be a really talented, tall driver if we're going to put you in that seat.
Exactly. Or super, super skinny.
Yeah. It's we're probably talking more about F1 than anybody listening who has no interest cares, but I'm fascinated by it because it's actually a sport that really blends technology with the athlete. There's not many sports like that, and I think as a nerd, I am fascinated by the machine, like the fact that the cars are so well engineered and have so many tricky little things that they do. That fascinates me. And then obviously the skill of the driver. Like I said, Lewis Hamilton, when you watch him just overtake people, it's unbelievable how good he is. And then other guys
So
too.
true.
And people are young too. Like some of these drivers are like 21, getting in there. So that's kind of the new trend now. They're hiring all these young drivers.
I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Verstappen. I think he was 17 when he started, I want to say.
Jesus, crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
Like, can you imagine being 17 and driving a car like that? Like,
can you imagine being a parent letting your kid do that? It's such a deadly sport.
Well, they all start. Most of those guys, like Lewis Hamilton, started karting when he was super young, like 5 years old.
Yeah.
So, because I remember that his dad had like a great story that his dad used to work on the railroad, and he would just work so hard, and then the weekends they'd go and spend like all the money that they earned to go karting, because that's your progression into racing, is you start as a kid karting. So yeah, I guess from a young age,
that's what I've heard.
And at ridiculous speeds.
It's really a wealthy sport, just like golf.
It is.
Like it's so expensive to get into it. So, but I'm like so into it now. Like I have the game on my Xbox. I downloaded the F1 2019. It comes with Game Pass on Xbox, so I got that. I'm anticipating F1 2021, which should be coming out in July. So, I'm even considering getting like a thing,
the whole
like
setup,
a steering wheel, the whole setup. I've watched videos. There's VR setups now where you can, play in VR, so that way as you're driving, you literally can see left and right, and it is really immersive.
That's crazy.
So, wow. But the problem with those games versus like Mario Kart is that all the physics and everything is extremely accurate. That's the whole point. It's like a simulation. So it's kind of almost not as fun as Mario Kart, where it's, there's a lot of self-driving features, and obviously you can throw a banana peel in Mario Kart.
So, that's true. That's very true. You knock someone off the road. You knock your car off the road in F1, and that's your end of your race. Like, you're done.
Are you a Final Cut or Premiere guy?
Final Cut. Used to be Premiere.
Yes.
I couldn't deal with the
I was a little worried because I know you're an Adobe person, at least with Lightroom and Photoshop, right? But like, Final Cut is the way to go. What made you switch?
A lot of crashes was the biggest thing, and I tried to swap to Final Cut twice before, and I just couldn't get on with the magnetic timeline. And then there was one time I just said, right, that's it. I'm just going to edit this whole video in there, and it took longer, but I realized it was, once you get your head around the magnetic timeline, it just works so much more fluid. The export times are ridiculous as well. And it's just an easier piece of software to use. Once you get your head around it, it's just so much easier and fluid and works better.
I heard, I think it was a Final Cut engineer or something. They said that they designed it for that like first time user. If you have no concept of editing and you say, I would like to learn to edit, please, and you give them Final Cut, that intuitively it is actually easier to edit. The problem is people who grow up using other NLEs like Premiere or the original Final Cut, or God forbid, Avid. I
learned on Avid,
Oh, really?
Horrible pieces. Media Composer. Ugh.
Yeah, it's still like the industry standard for some reason, but it's it's very slowly dying too, probably. But
good.
when you grow up learning those programs, it's hard to untrain yourself to learn the newer, magnetic timeline, apparently. But I switched day one back when it first came out. This was, I guess, 11 years ago now, but I've been using it ever since and love it as well. And I have a M1 Mac, which runs it really beautifully. Can't wait for whatever's coming next on that. Do you have an M1 Mac as well?
I have the M1 MacBook, and I use it for if I'm editing outside of like the studio space, if I'm editing on the road, and it's really convenient for that. Recently, I've been using the iMac a little bit more, and it's definitely slower. I just can't break away from having a desktop. I don't know why.
Yeah. No, totally. I mean, I have a really beautiful 4K display. I'm using the Mac Mini M1, and it's maxed out. So even though they're probably going to have better computers coming out, I'm very satisfied with this machine right now. And I may upgrade. I'll probably get the MacBook Pro 16-inch if that happens soon.
Right.
But yeah, the Mac Minis, I'm happy with it.
It just, with Final Cut, you can throw anything at it and it will edit it without making proxies. It's like the 4K 120 from the A7S III. Just drop it in the timeline, no issues, good to go. Whereas if I throw it on my iMac, you need proxies. You got to wait for it to create those before it's done. So for convenience, it can't be beat. Definitely can't be beat.
I don't know if before the Apple Silicon world, I don't know if you ever tried this, but if you have an iPad, you can it always worked that way. Like you could bring in anything in LumaFusion, and it seemed to work just so flawlessly. And
Really?
I was like uh so the Apple Silicon has always just been really optimized. And so I was always like, ah, man, if only this iPad had Final Cut on it. Well,
Hmm.
now it's essentially that, except it's better. Um,
Yeah.
However, I still hope that Apple will put Final Cut on the iPad, hopefully this
I'd love
year,
to see it. I'd
especially because
love
the
to
new
see
one
it.
has an M1 in it. So
Yeah. That would, I genuinely, like with the Magic Keyboard, I did a video about this the other day and I said in it, the Magic Keyboard with the iPad, like having the touch and the keyboard there, I think
mhm.
that will be a quicker way to edit A-roll than it will be. Not for like finessing things, but for
uh,
just a basic quick raw edit, I think you could probably do it quicker on an iPad.
just because you're able to quickly slide through your
Exactly.
timeline and
Zoom
touch
in,
it.
zoom out. You're not having to do like multiple. Yeah. So I
Yeah, you're
would love
right.
to see that. Yeah.
And again, talk about intuitive. Like if you're taking somebody fresh out of high school with no experience, hand them an
Hmm.
iPad with Final Cut on it, it's going to be so intuitive.
That's
It's
it.
way more intuitive than a mouse and
Yeah.
a keyboard. Um, that's
100%.
crazy.
Hmm.
If you could change one thing about YouTube, if you were the CEO and you could just like snap your fingers and change one thing about it, what would that be for you?
As soon as I post a video, it actually goes to the people that subscribe to the channel, and not whether YouTube thinks that they want it to be viewed or anything like that. How it
So you
used
just
to
want
be.
you just want a time machine then? Yeah, just go back
Yeah,
like
pretty much.
6
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it is odd that if you subscribe to somebody, the old thinking was this person decided to subscribe, so therefore we're going to serve this video to all of their
Hmm.
subscribers. But now a subscribe is more of like I kind of like this creator, and
Yeah.
if I watch more than one video in a week, maybe that'll tell YouTube that I actually really like this creator. But
It's true.
you've got so many ghost subscribers is what they call it, people who
Yeah.
probably watch all your videos who aren't even subscribed,
Hmm.
and they're just finding your videos from the homepage on the
Yeah.
browse features.
It's so true. Someone said recently is like you should ask for subscribers, and I never did. I don't like that interruption in the video of asking, but I've started trying it and it genuinely makes a difference. Like you have a video that does well now, it's like, oh, you get a couple hundred subscribers from that. Whereas
Well, then
before
in
you
that
wouldn't
case, if
get
you're
anything.
watching right now, please hit subscribe.
There you go. Yeah.
This
Click
podcast.
that button
But
down
no,
below.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can. Were you able to see the analytics and see that when you said it actually had an uptick?
What do you mean? Like in terms of the video or at like a point in the video where
Yeah, like were you able to see like when you started saying it an actual subscriber
Oh,
growth?
oh yeah, like 100%. Like there was a video I posted. I started doing it about 4 or 5 videos ago, something like that, and that video ended up doing quite well. And there was just a huge increase.
That's
I'd
great.
look back on when the subscriber chart just did that. So
Yeah.
it definitely works, definitely. And the reason someone said the reason is because people forget. They watch to the end of the video, or they see on the right, they see another one, and they click it. But people forget that they watch you. But YouTube will continuously just serve your videos even if you're not subscribed. So
Exactly.
who
Yeah, and
knows?
if they've already watched to the end, they like you. They like your content,
Mhm.
and maybe
Mhm.
they have already seen a couple of videos. And I know for me personally, as a consumer, that's happened to me before where I'll watch somebody, maybe 3 or 4 times, and then they have a subscriber call, and I'm like, yeah, I'll give them a subscribe at this point. I'm already
Yeah,
invested. Like I like this guy.
yeah,
So
that's it, right? And you can always unsubscribe. That's the thing. That's what I've started including there. It's not a contract. It's not a commitment. You can always unsubscribe.
I love how my friend Zach Mayfield, he's the host of Kinetica now, he always says, I have a camera camp coming out later in the year. If you want to be included in the camera camp, make sure to hit subscribe. Like he basically says like there's a camera camp, and if you want to enter this camera camp that is kind of a fictional thing,
Yeah,
then the only way you can enter is if you subscribe, or whatever. But
it's smart. Give people a reason to do it.
yeah, but
Yeah.
anyways, okay, so you would want to go back to like 2010 or something like that.
Yeah, just when if you post a video that has like a nice looking thumbnail, people will click it instead of it like that look where you're out of focus in the background of a product. Like, you know what I mean? Now you have to,
Yeah.
even if you've got a good looking video and a beautiful still in that video, you can't use that as a thumbnail because no one's going to click it.
No, unless
So-
you're Casey Neistat or Emma Chamberlain or something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think there's two different
what it
types
is.
of creators. There's people like them who they're so personality driven that they're just people just watch them. For like
Yeah.
you mentioned Potato Jet, you watch his vlogs. Like you probably would if he posted a vlog today, and it was a thumbnail of him going like this with his thumb up. You probably click it. Like it doesn't right.
For sure.
Like,
Without a doubt.
but that's the difference in the type of content. Is like
Yeah.
if you're a creator who's selling your video based on the idea, the title, and the overall premise of the video, then your thumbnail kind of has to serve the premise and sell the premise. That's the
So
struggle
true.
that I think a lot of gear reviewers face. Is like you kind of want to be able to do both if you're doing it full time. But I don't know.
It's a constant
I
battle.
don't know.
Constant
It's a
battle.
battle because like you can totally make a healthy living only reviewing gear every single day
easily,
and being
yeah.
really good at it. Like you can make probably a lot of money. So
The challenge
If it's-
comes when are you doing it for money or are you doing it because
Exactly.
you enjoy doing it? And there's a fine balance between that. So
I know for me, those 2 years when I was on Kinotika, I was enjoying it thoroughly because it was totally new and I
That's
never
it.
had done it before. And after I did it for 2 years, I kind of was like, okay, I think I'm ready to move on. That's why I moved to Indie Mogul, and that was a whole new fun change and a challenge. And uh, the reason I left was honestly because of my family. It wasn't anything to do personally. I feel like my job wasn't finished there. I would have loved to have honestly have stayed another year, but it just it just didn't work out. But
yeah, sometimes that happens. You got to do what's best for
Yeah.
you, right?
exactly. Do you have any pets?
I have 2 dogs. I'm surprised you actually
Oh,
haven't
wow.
had them yet. Yeah,
I have
it's a
not heard-
madhouse.
I haven't
It's a
heard a
zoo.
peep. You got 2
No,
dogs,
the one-
2 children.
2 dogs, 2 kids. Yeah, I got a
And a
little
wife.
puggle and a wife.
Okay.
And a purebred 90-pound lab. So
Okay.
yeah, and the
Nice.
one little dog's old, and I swear he's like partly deaf, so he hears like a little tiny like tap, and he's like, "Oh, that's the door!" Just goes nuts.
Yeah.
So
Well, I've got we had a dog. We had a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel, beautiful breed. We had to give it away because once we had our second kid, we just realized that like it was just too much. So I commend you
Yes.
for having 2 dogs and children. We do have a cat. I am a cat person. I'm not like
Oh, you are?
Philip Bloom. I'm not like Philip Bloom.
okay,
But I do
he's
like
full
cats.
cat person. Yeah,
He's full tilt.
Yeah.
I like cats.
Yeah.
In fact, you know what? I retract that statement. I'm not a cat person. I don't
Okay.
like being. I don't like having that identity. I just
yeah.
I
You're
like
that crazy
cats,
cat
okay?
guy.
Like,
Yeah.
But if he like if somebody took him and they were more of a cat person and they were willing to like give him a better life, like it wouldn't even phase me. I wouldn't even think about it.
Yeah.
But he's cool. He's sitting below me. I have a really cool cat. He's like a dog in a way. Like I'll just kind of like do this and he'll come running.
Yeah.
We used to take him outside and we would go on a walk and he would follow us around on
That's
a
amazing.
walk. So, and like if he did something I didn't want him to do, I'd just say his name and like snap my fingers and he listens to me. So, really unusual for a cat. So
That
my
is.
cat is pretty chill, pretty cool. And he's literally just sitting below the camera right now, just hanging out. So, he's cool, but
I
I
wish
don't
my
think
dogs
all
would
cats
do that.
are like that.
My dogs are more like cats in that they don't listen to you. They don't do what you want to say. Yeah.
Are you a video game guy at all? Do you play games at all? You wish you could, right? You don't have the time.
Yes. I wish I could. I used to play video games a ton when I was younger. Final Fantasy VII, I think, is what really got me into video
Nice.
games years and years ago. And then I bought a PlayStation 4 last year. I'm like, right, we're going to play the new version of Final Fantasy 7. I'm going to play The Last of Us 2. And I had it for like 2 weeks, and I realized I don't have the time. And even when I do have the time, I feel like I shouldn't be doing this. So I would love to say I am, and I had the time to do it, but I just don't. Maybe when I'm older, I'll get back into it. But are you, Dave? Like, obviously F1.
Not really. No, I'm very casual. I play, like I said, I just got the F1 game. I probably played it like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
I'm not really into it. I've even tried, because now I'm subscribed to Apple One, which includes Apple Arcade. I've downloaded a couple of games on there, and there's some that are pretty good. There's one game in particular that's a ton of fun. If you have friends that have Apple Arcade, it's called Song Pop Party, and it's like a multiplayer. It's tied into, because it's an Apple Arcade game, it's tied into Apple Music. So they'll play like 3 or 4 seconds of a song, and then they give you a multiple choice, and you have to pick like either which artist it is or what the name of the song is. You can select different decades. And if other people on their phone have Apple Arcade, you can play either completely online with each other, or I've done it with my family, like in the same room together. We all play on our devices, and it's actually kind of fun. But that's the only game that I've really enjoyed.
It's like when Words with Friends was a big fad.
Yeah, Words with Friends.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Interesting. The only games I play on my phone, and I challenged myself at the beginning of the year to learn a new skill, and I don't know why, it just came up in conversation. I wanted to learn chess. So the beginning of the year, I started learning chess. So that's all I play on my phone right now. And it's fascinating the way it makes you think. I'm getting better, and that's the key.
Playing it? Okay. That's cool.
I play a lot
like
online. My determining factor of how I got better is I played my father-in-law probably about a month after I had started learning, and I lost horribly, and I played him again last month and I beat him. So that must mean I'm getting better. So yeah.
Can you share the chess game that you play, the actual app that you use? What's the name of it?
Chess.com. Just chess. It's literally the name of the app. It's chess.com.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
And there's so there's a subscription in there, obviously, and unfortunately I'm now a premium member of chess.com, so you get like lessons and they teach you how to play, but I find it really hard to learn things as I'm growing up, so that was something I wanted to try, and it's fun.
Yeah. Chess.com, there it is.
There you go. Chess.com. That's it.
It's
such a hard thing to learn if you've never played chess before. Like, there's so much to it. Yeah. Probably boring people talking about chess.
No, we've talked about F1. We've talked about a lot of things. This is the podcast, man. This is it. We just chat. We just chat about stuff. What are some of just to kind of close this out, what are some of the like things right now that you're kind of debating, or things that you're kind of struggling with gear, with YouTube? Is there any like current, I mean, it might be video ideas that you have, honestly, so I don't want to give away any concepts that you have, but like I said earlier in this podcast, I loved the video that you did where you shared how to essentially up the 12 megapixel resolution of the A7S to make it essentially like a 48 megapixel. Like, that's a really cool little tutorial or a hack or tip or thing. Like, is there anything like that that you've found that you're currently like kind of into? I kind of shared, for me, it's the Rode Wireless Go. Like, I've been telling everybody like, you should buy one of these because these are great. Like, is there anything right now, a piece of gear or something that you're kind of obsessed with, or at least interested in enough to make a video about, like some sort of premise or idea or concept?
I just received a cinema lens from Mikey, one of those Chinese brands, I think.
Yeah.
It's called. And I'm fascinated by that. So that's something I'm kind of playing around with now and toying around with how I can turn it into a video without making it a review. But that brings me to my next point of a challenge that I have, is I'm at that point now where I've realized I need to start collaborating with others to make videos. Like, I want to make videos that have me in it, but I can't film myself, so I need others to work with. So that's a challenge I think I have right now. And obviously with COVID, that doesn't help things in general.
But you figured it out with your podcast in a way, you can do it remotely.
Yeah, that's true. Do you remember, like, I live in a very, very rural area. So I'm like an hour and a half east of Toronto. You remember Matty Hopoya's old editor, Matthew Paquette? He just moved to my town. Yeah. So I think we're gonna.
We actually had him on the show.
Oh, nice. Podcast. There you go.
Yeah, he's great. So, really funny guy too. Mm-hmm. He was like big on TikTok and on Vine. He was really big on Vine.
Oh, right. He had Vine. Yeah. He's one of the original people on that. I loved Vine.
Yeah, exactly. You should connect with him for sure, man.
Yeah, we're gonna. He messaged me. We're gonna meet up and hopefully we can start doing some stuff together. So it'd be good to have someone else that does YouTube in this area.
I've said it multiple times, but I'm going to say it again for one of those people who are listening to this show who haven't taken my advice. But it's so important to have somebody in your life, and in your case, it's probably the podcast, but also hopefully it can be Matt as well. But like having one or two people in your life that do what you do, whether it's YouTube, freelance, whatever, somebody that you can just kind of air your grievances on, like somebody you could just share your struggles with, share your ideas, bounce ideas back and forth. For me, it's Jevin Dovey. He and we text each other, call each other almost every day. And I think he even has like 2 or 3 other guys that he talks to as well. I only have him, but he's the guy that like we call each other almost every morning. It's my wife calls it, is your boyfriend calling you? But it's true.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
I kind of asked him like straight up. I was like, dude, I just need somebody to kind of hold me accountable, to talk to share ideas with. And he was like, yeah, I need that too. And so I do call other creators as well, but he's the most consistent. And it's just been so valuable and so important to me because I really look up to him as a creator. He's obviously, he's very successful. He's got like, I think almost 600,000 subs now. But on top of that, he's also kind of in the same space as me in terms of creatively just trying to figure out what he wants to do next. And we're able to really share that with one another and be completely unfiltered about it, and I think it's important to have that.
It is, because it's not like a lot of my friends are, like as an example, a lot of my friends are in England still, and it's none of them do anything like this. So they really don't understand it. They just look at it as you make videos, you put them on the internet. That must be easy, but they don't understand like the behind the scenes of all that. So to have someone you can chat to about, as you say, the pains and the trials and tribulations is very, very beneficial and can help you because you can be having a rough week and you have someone to. Well, that's it. Yeah. What did you get? No, I got more than you.
What'd you get? What?
Yeah.
What, they paid me half as much for more work, or whatever.
But that's good because now you know that those are things you have no idea about. Okay, well, you get a deal from a brand. Oh, they're going to pay me that. Great. Someone tells you they got paid twice as much as you and they maybe have less subscribers or their engagement's lower. So you have no idea. So to have people to run those ideas off is fantastic. It's a good point.
Yeah. Just make sure you don't share that information with the client.
Yeah, don't tell them that. They won't like that.
Well, Chris, it was a real pleasure getting to know you better, hear your story, learn more about you personally. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. It was a lot of fun. Hopefully this Zencaster website doesn't fail us on the video.
I guess you'll see soon.
Yeah, we'll see soon. But yeah, thanks, Chris. I'll have to have you on again sometime.
Thank you, Dave. Pleasure's all mine. Appreciate it.
I'll probably be seeing you soon on your podcast. Everybody go check out Chris's work. I'll link it down in the description below and in the show notes. You can check out his YouTube channel, his podcast, his Instagram and Twitter, all that kind of fun stuff. So thanks, Chris. Perfect. Have a great day.
Thanks, Dave.
And,
cheers.
Yeah, man. Hope you enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed my conversation with Chris Brockhurst. If you did, you should love other podcasts that we've done here on the Golden Hour Podcast. Linked above is one of my favorites with Josh Yo. And then over here is another one with Sarah Dici. Also, if you listened all the way to the end of this podcast video, would you please subscribe? That means you're a fan. Thanks a lot. Once again, I'm Dave Mays. This is the Golden Hour Podcast. We'll see you next week.